As you know, I had the opportunity to participate in the MiCUP program at Michigan State. Unfortunately, I did not have the actual opportunity to conduct experiments within the lab that I was in, which is computer science and research. But I did get the opportunity to study a publication with the professors in the lab, which was Dr. Sona Under and Dr. Nilüfer Under. The publication is the title at the top, A Two-Phase Recovery Mechanism. That's just a publication title, but the research was mainly in like a two-phase recovery mechanism within processors, minor processors and superscalar processors. A processor or superscalar processor is a CPU unit which implements a form of parallelism within a single processor. I'm sorry. The basis of this is that you want to be able to complete tasks simultaneously to create a more efficient overall performance. Which means, say, like, have you ever realized that you can save time at home by washing your clothes and taking a shower at the same time? That's pretty much like the scheme of the whole thing. So what goes on here in the two-phase recovery mechanism, this mechanism is built and designed to create a more simple and less expensive mechanism, because compared to state-of-the-art mechanisms, those ones are more complex, and what comes with complexity comes more expensive, monetary expenses to make it more, to improve it, I'm sorry. So the two-phase recovery mechanism has two phases. And one phase, or one instance, is when you're recovering from a speculation within a single processor. In order to increase your performance, you speculate, which is speculative execution. And during speculative execution, you make predictions or assumptions within the processor for data or information that you may or may not need. You do it in advance, so you'll save time instead of waiting for results in terms of what you decide to do next. But say you make a false speculation, you have to go back and recover from that. This is where the two-phase recovery mechanism comes into play. So the two-phase recovery mechanism has two instances. One instance is when you have a misspeculation and it's not blocked by a long latency operation, and I'll talk about that in a second. And another instance is when it is blocked by the long latency operation. Now, the long latency operation is something, for example, as a last level cache miss. So as you know, like in the computer, you have your memory. The cache is where you pretty much go to retrieve information or instructions for your pipeline based on to proceed forward within the processor. So if you have a last level cache miss, that means like you have a tier level, you have a cache, and the last level cache miss is the last level within the whole cache. Means you go at the top, you check if that's where the information you need is. And if it's not there, you have to keep going down in tier, and that can take a long time. That's a long latency operation. And because you have that long latency operation, it delays you from getting able to recover from your initial misspeculation. So in this instance, you have to recover from that long latency operation before you can recover from your misspeculation. The great thing about the two-phase recovery mechanism, it allows you to treat that long latency operation as a second form of a misspeculation. Therefore, you can then overlap that longer latency with the misspeculation. So at that point, you can recover from both of those instances simultaneously. Here's the phase transition. You have a normal state within your pipeline, and then you realize a misprediction is detected, so you go on to phase one. And phase one is where you recover from your regular misspeculation, but you won't move on to phase two until you realize your misspeculation is blocked by that long latency operation, and you have to go back to your cache and retrieve information and whatnot. So if you don't have a blockage of a last level cache miss, then you do not need to move on to phase two. So you stay at phase one and you move back onto your normal state once you recover. But if you do have that blockage to deal with your misspeculation, you go on to phase two, and after you complete phase two by recovering from both of those instances simultaneously, you then proceed or return back to your normal state within the process. Phase one, this is pretty much the pipeline of just how it looks internally within the processor, which is where phase one just replicates a basic recovery mechanism in which that takes place. And phase two, this pretty much is a pipeline display of how phase two, as I said, treats the display as a misspeculation, which allows it to override the recovery penalty with the cache miss penalty. These results here are just a a couple benchmark tests compared to like the infinite checkpoint. The infinite checkpoint within this process or experiment is like the best that you want any mechanism to perform that. So like if you have a bunch of tests, you want each of these tests to perform at this level. Like this is the best each of them can do. This is like for the this is for the two-phase recovery mechanism. And this is also for like other state-of-the-art mechanisms, which is more complex as compared to this infinite checkpoint. I'll just briefly talk about one, which is this is speed. As two-phase recovery gets closer to the infinite checkpoint, as the memory latency increases, the memory latency that increases is pretty much the last level cache. It's better that your last, or it can be better, that your last level cache takes longer, because then you can recover from more mismanipulations under that time period. So the shorter your memory latency is, that last level cache miss, the shorter that is, the less recovery recovery mismanipulations you can deal with under that time frame. In conclusion, the two-phase recovery mechanism is a great mechanism to continue to look into because of its simplicity, and with simplicity becomes less monetary expense compared to state-of-the-art mechanisms. Even though they do not perform to the same level of greatness as some state-of-the-art mechanisms, they believe reducing the internal complexity and starting from a more simple state, they can decide how complex they want to get, considering that this mechanism itself isn't too far off performance from the state-of-the-art mechanisms. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Very ignorant question. So, were you able to test this out in real time?
This is because it's a publication, they already did their experiments and tests. I did get to see a basic sheet of how like the results would look. In the instance, like those are these results. I saw like how the results would look on a sheet of paper, but I didn't get to do any experience myself.
Okay, I'm going to ask the similar question that I asked before in terms of how you came up with this particular topic. I understand that it was a publication, but the topic itself, how did this come to interest you? And is there something related to you, your future, or what you're planning on doing?
It came to interest me based on the fact of like what can happen, what goes on internally from the CPU, general public. They just look at the computer screen, they do their Google searches and whatnot. They don't understand that this type of procedure takes place behind when you have incorrect searches or your computer has an error, or like your computer may say you're not responding. It may not be responding because this last level cache was taking so long, therefore it has to go through that whole recovery method and then proceed forward as it goes back to the normal state. And this does interest me for like future work, because computer science has always been interesting for considering I like math, and technology is pretty much where the future is right now, so I didn't really have an issue doing that.
Good.